Speak up, people. Tell me next time. Okay. It's okay to use those mics. Somebody tell me. No questions? Everybody okay? Somebody respond.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Robin, you started out. You've been getting good at it. You ready
No
now?
question.
And write all the specifications.
Okay. Because your paper is worth 100 points, so we want to make sure you get, this is like preparation for your paper. While it's not a pie graph, the writing, this is the kind of writing that you're going to need to do on the paper coming up. Okay. Okay, back to our agenda. I did send out, there was an error on the student guide. One of the cells where it told you to type something was wrong. If you understood what you were doing, you would have caught that they were telling you to type the wrong cell. But I did send out an attachment with that corrected. Don't forget they have workshops. If you fear it at all, the workshops will walk you right through the Excel. And remember, that is cmckay2 at ivytech.edu. You don't have to register for the test workshops reviews, our regular supplemental, but you do have to register for the project workshops because of the number of computers available in the computer lab. And I previously sent out when those were. Today we have section 6 per capita and CPI, section 7 percents, and we are going to use proportions. We will do our quiz practice. Many of you have already done a good job on that. And just a reminder, we do have all our tests are proctored, and it is in week 5. You should have already made your appointment. Somebody in one of my classes, I guess Greencastle, was full, and it's not even midterm or finals week. But you have downtown, Lawrence, and then the other sites like Noblesville, Avon, Greencastle, Franklin. It's a 90-minute test. You just make your appointment by the 90 minutes. While it says 2:18, which is a Saturday, most of the testing centers close Friday at 5 or 5:30. Some of them aren't even open on Saturday, some of the remote campuses. So check the schedule and make sure you are scheduled. They usually do have Saturday hours at midterm and finals week, at least at downtown. But a lot of times on weeks that aren't midterm and finals, they do not. So make sure you are scheduled. Best to schedule after Thursday, like Thursday evening and that or Friday, and then it gives you Friday if something happens. It's good for Thursday because unfortunately the way they schedule our syllabus, our test review is today. Now, you would be welcome to come to my Wednesday class test review if that's an option with your schedule from 6 to 7 at night, or to watch that recording after we record it. We'll go over the test review, and you can get to that. I will try to review make a recording of the test review ahead of time if you have to go earlier in the week. But I had many people that would take the test on Monday and do no test review, and they did very poorly. The test reviews mirror the test, so go over the test review before taking the test. Questions? Ready to get started?
Yes.
All right. I see Fallon. I was looking for Fallon. How about Tiffany McCain? Brian here yet? Brian Evans? Our Crystal Byers. Okay. We are looking for per capita problems this week. What does per capita mean?
Per person.
Great. I like the response. Per person. Okay. So when we get the problems, we just follow along and we make a template is the best way to do that. An example would be, oh boy, my eyes, I can't see this. The government had 2.1 trillion in receipts. And 2.8 trillion in outlays or expenses for 2013. Is this a surplus or a deficit?
It's a deficit.
It's a deficit. They spent more than they took in. What is the ratio of expenses over receipts? Okay. So the expenses was the 2.8 million and the receipts was 2.1 million. We're lucky the millions cancel. So we end up with, oh, thank you, it says trillion, 2.8 trillion, so it is not going to cancel. Are they both trillion? They're both trillion. Okay, they do cancel. Now one thing, if you haven't done the homework yet, a lot of you have, like the pacing plan, everything this week says round to a place. It does not say a significant figures are proper significant or appropriate significant. It says round to the thousands place. Now, you are expected to know how to do that. I will not give you credit for that like I did on the significant figures. I expect you to know how to do that. So we get 1.3 repeating. It says thousandth, so that answer would just be 1.333. Okay. The per capita income in the U.S. was 53,143. Okay. If the average person operated like the government, how much money would the average person have spent in 2013? Now, if we were to do this with a proportion, we're going to get a little different answer, and it takes either way. You could take the 1.33 that we already have and multiply that by the 53,143, which most of the time they won't take, but we need to get used to the proportions which they require most of the time. So they're if we do the ratio of their expenses to their receipts, their expenses were the 2.8 trillion, their receipts were the 2.1. These would be considered, the income would be considered the receipts for the people. And we're looking for how much did they spend? You should be experts at the cross multiplying. And we'd get 70,857, and I think it was to the nearest whole dollar. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Let's look at a quiz question. Okay. Let's look at number 1. Which of the following statements are true regarding debt and deficit? Okay. Yes, there's nothing here. A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3. Okay. Somebody want to give us an answer?
A and B.
B.
I agree. That should be an easy one on your quiz. Now, for one a little more difficult. By January...
Question about that first one on the quiz and the homework. That question was presented with another option on it that said that deficit can be accrued over the course of many years, or some wording like that. I'm paraphrasing, but
the quiz, I took it off, correct? It shouldn't have been on the quiz.
I don't know. It was late last night. I don't know.
So the homework is there, and I have a problem with that homework question.
Okay, I was like,
It says,
I don't think this is right, but it wouldn't take it without that third
Right.
one. And I was like,
I actually have sent a thing into the accounting department because I guess it's a slight wording thing. To me, I guess it can be, but then it's called what? Debt, right?
yeah, then it's debt. That's not deficit.
Yeah.
The definition is different.
Deficit accrued over time is called debt. It can be accrued over time, but once that happens, it is called debt. So I find that question very, very tricky. I don't like it because if they said debt is deficit accrued over time, I would have kept it in there. I can't take it out of WebWorks, or I would take it out of there. That is why I took it off of here. And that is, I agree with you. I've talked to accounting, and they are having a hard time telling me why it's worded that way. But we know we can't have debt more than 1 year, but it's called something else, right? Debt over the years and surplus, if it's combined into our deficit and surplus, if it ends up over the years, it's called debt. And I just don't like the way that's worded at all. So I agree with you. So it should not have been on your quiz. I took it out. Okay. If you took the quiz really early, You may have been one person that took it before I took it out. It adjusted your score and counted it right without it. So, okay. Good question. And if it's on the test, I will also take it off of the test. I can adjust it on Blackboard. I can't adjust WebWorks, or you wouldn't have those significant figures in there. By January, a country's population had grown to 212.4 million, and the country's federal debt was a reported 13.2 trillion. Calculate the debt per capita. So Megan, you had the same thing with WebWorks. Okay. I like Scott. He's showing us how to do it. I suggest always making a template, debt per capita. I've said this before, and then I write the wrong thing in the template. But I have a much greater chance of not making an error. Debt per means to divide. Capita means population. Okay. So my debt is going to go on the top. Don't forget the words. They make a difference. This is trillion, so I put 10 to the 12th. This is million, so 10 to the 6th. Okay. Now, I can't just cancel these because they're not the same. Okay. You can expand them out if you want. You can use the quotient rule if you want. I don't suggest you adjust decimals and put them in proper scientific notation because it doesn't say we have to. On some questions it says you have to put them in scientific notation, but if we don't have to, I wouldn't go moving this to 1.32 times 10 to the 13th or 2.124 times 10 to the 8th. It just opens you up for more errors unless it says to put each value in scientific notation. Now, again, you can adjust all this, but if you have this calculator, by far the best way not to make mistakes is to use, and somebody last week I think was putting where to get it in Amazon, use this fraction button right here and type it in just like this, 13.2 times 10 up caret 12 for a trillion over 212.4 up, oops, I forgot, times 10 up caret to the 6th. Okay, doesn't take long at all, and I'm far less likely to make an error. If you can all see that. All I have to do is hit enter. Did anyone get $62,146? And right now I have 89 cents, but it says round to the nearest dollars. Don't miss those. 147. Now, I had some people last week that said, I don't know why I got the quiz wrong. I put what we had in class. I'm not using the same numbers. Make sure you check and use your numbers. These are not the exact quiz questions. Ooh, Robin, Walmart has them for 15 now. The calculators, she said. Some Walmarts do, and whenever I look, Walmart's out of them. So Fry's has them. I've never seen them at Fry's either. So we have some good options there. Okay. Does anybody agree with my calculations? I do not see any
Yes.
calculations by anybody posted yet for the final answer. Because, you know, I do make mistakes. Jacob, you worked it out? You didn't not just agreeing with me? Robin, you worked it out yourself? Okay, I'm just checking again because I do punch things in wrong. $52,147. Okay. Okay, Brooke got it too, so I think we're good. This will be a test question like this, so if you don't understand it, please speak up. Go to the Learning Center supplemental or my office hours. Very typical test question. Okay. Okay, what came next? They went into application with proportions to CPI, Consumer Price Index, which to me I find fun because a lot of people that think they're really struggling with the proportions and the word problems find out they weren't at all. What they were struggling with was the large numbers, because once they got away from the millions, billions, and trillions, and they have numbers without the words millions, billions, and trillions, the proportions and the word problems became much easier. Okay, what the CPI is called the Consumer Price Index, and again, this is real life. Most of you have probably heard of it. It is what they call the tracking of a basket of goods. It's not a literal basket, but they have tracked for years what a certain representative basket of certain different representative goods and services cost. Okay, the baseline year, or what they call the base year, is in 1982, where they say that was about $100 worth. Or no, 1983, 99.6. Okay. Now, normally, from year to year, that representative average of those goods and services increases. Okay? That's called inflation. If you take the percent change from one year to the next, that's where when people and economists say what the inflation rate, that's where it's calculated from. Like I said, they're not making this stuff up. When you say, when am I ever going to use this in real life? People used to say in algebra classes all the time when they're graphing hyperbolas and things. This is all real life. This is stuff you'll hear all the time. Okay? Now, occasionally you have deflation. It's rare, but if you look, there's a year, and I got to get light in this room. I cannot see. You'll probably find it before me. Is it 4 to 5 or 14 to 15? Where is the deflation? 8 to 9. Who remembers what happened 8 to 9 that caused the deflation?
The stock market.
It was not the stock market.
It was the housing crash.
Yep, that was the housing crash. There might be another one in here where there's deflation, where the housing crash was, or the stock market. There might be one there too. But that was the housing crash. Now, the people that have struggled with this section, they didn't realize there was a CPI chart. They're trying to figure it out, and they're totally lost because they didn't look at the section. They just did the homework. Once you realize you have to use the CPI chart, then it falls into place. So what we're doing is we're saying, what would, let's say, a house we bought in 1970, what would that be in comparable into $2015? What would it cost? Or a car? Or if we bought a car now, what would that be comparable to in 1976 dollars when that was, let's see, my first car was 1981 when I was in high school. I got a 1976 Chevette. What would that be comparable to? Okay, if I were to buy it in today's dollars. Okay, so that's what it does. It compares it. And things don't always follow inflation. For instance, TVs. I think most of us know TVs have gone down in price, not up. Something like that is a technology change. Basic TVs with remotes were very expensive. When I came out of college, I didn't even have a TV. It took me 2 years before I bought one, and it was a 19-inch Toshiba, and it was $400. That was my first TV. We had a roommate had a black and white 12-inch without a remote is what we had in college. I didn't even have one. Now I could get a 32-inch for $99. So not everything follows the rate. Now there are many ways to set up your proportions. The way I do them works very well. Pick one and stick with it, and always label, 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 make your template. And my way works very well, so you are welcome to use it. Let's start with the number 4, the pizza one, and I'll show you how I set them up. When I'm doing the CPI, I always start out with, what years am I comparing? It says in 1980, so I always put my heading, 1980. A pizza costs $4.99. What would the cost be in 1979 dollars? Kind of silly to compare 2 years right next to each other, but that's what we've been tasked to do. I always put an ACT for actual value, or an AV, and then I like to just put my CPI values on the bottom for each year. Nothing wrong if you put your CPIs on the top and your actual values on the bottom. This just works for me. So in 1980, we know that value. Okay, we're looking for the 79. Then I get my CPI chart. So I look for 1980, 82.4, and I look at 79, 72.6. Okay. You should be excellent at this by now. Multiply the diagonal without a variable, divide by the diagonal with a variable, and we're rounding to the nearest cent, which is the thousandth place. And we get, it was 4.396, so rounding will be 440. Aren't those fun? I like them. Okay. Let's do another one. Any requests on any of these? Anybody have any requests? Guys are quiet. Robbins doesn't have any. Okay, we'll go to number 9. We will do the houses. I'll give you a minute to set it up. Let's see what you get. Okay, Brooke says 130,000 over. And what is our CPI for 2011? 224.939. That is where she got that number. We don't know, you can put an X or a question mark, the 2005 value. And what are we going to put for the CPI? Robin's saying 195.3. I got to look at my chart. You don't have to memorize, you're given the numbers you need. She's correct. 2005 is 195.3. Multiply and divide, and I think Scott just told us how to do the problem. Multiply and divide there. And who's got an answer? Robin does. Laura's got one, and what are we rounding to? The nearest cent. I agree. One thing to note, do not round whatever they give you, whatever table. Use what the value they give you on your table. Now you will find tables that round differently. Like on the quiz, I think they're rounding to the 10th. Just use whatever they give you on the table they give you. But don't round your numbers from the table they give you. Round at the end, not before the end. Okay. You ready to try your quiz question? Our sample, it's not your quiz question, it's a sample quiz question. Brooke, I don't even know how you typed that fast. She typed that as fast as I put the paper up. But I believe you are absolutely correct. Okay, we have a 2013 and a 2003. Actual value, CPI. 2013 we know is 42,800, and we are using their CPI chart, 232.957, which is different than the one in our book, 184. Okay. I did something wrong. Maybe I didn't. Anybody got an answer? Yep, I agree with Scott. We're going to the nearest dollar, though. Be careful. on the quizzes. $33,805. Okay, on to section 7, unless anybody has an objection. Okay, percents are per 100. Okay, we will be using proportions because what happens is most people can get percent of a number, but when you're given the part of a number and asked to find the whole amount, most people go way wrong. So they get about half the problems right when they just know how to do percent of a number. What I mean by percent of a number, if I tell you find 12% of 88, most of you know you can make 12% a decimal and multiply by 88. And we would get 10.56. True enough. But when I say $13 is 40% of what number, this is where most people go wrong. Okay? They have a hard time figuring out what to do. Okay? That's why using the proportion method and learning this percent proportion can help you get through a lot of word problems, and it helps you know when to multiply, when to divide. It also moves your decimal for you, so you don't have to, you may not forget to do it. I'm sure some of you will remember this. Is over of, it's just an acronym to remember, equals percent over 100. That division by 100 is what is moving your decimal. Now you won't always have the word is and of. You will have some straightforward questions like this that do have those words, but in some lengthy word problems, you're going to have to figure out which one is the part you're considering and the whole you're comparing to. What are you taking the percent of? What's the whole amount? It's not always the larger amount. You can have more than 100%. Okay? So for an example, make sure you have that, because in future sections when we get more complicated, and we will, percent problems, percent increase and decrease, you will need this. And I know some of you will not want to learn it. You'll just want to multiply and divide, but I'm telling you it will help you. And again, I know if you want straightforward percent of a number, this one is definitely easier just to do 0.89 times 40. But some people are much better off sticking to the routine. And how do I teach the routine? Same thing we have been doing. Always make a template. 100 I call your bingo free spot. It never changes. You always put 100. The next easiest one is going to be your percent symbol. Okay? You find what goes in that spot. It's either got the percent symbol, the word rate, or the word percent. Okay? So we know 89 goes there. Now you got a 50-50 chance. Does 40 go in the numerator or the denominator? This says of 40. You're taking the percentage of 40. That's the whole. It's right there. This is the X. And the cornerstone of this course is the proportion method. And we would get 35.6. And yes, could have got there like that. Okay. Let's try some more. What percent of 270 is 94.5? So we start out again with our template. 100 in the denominator. The next easiest is the percent. We have what percent? That's our question, our unknown. Of 270, you're finding the percent of that whole amount. That's the denominator, is 94.5. That was the part we took after we took the percentage of this whole. That's the is. Multiply and divide. And we get 35. B. This is the ones people miss. We got our free spot. Next easiest, it says 16%. Now, of what number? We don't know what we took 16% of, but we know the result is what? 10. That's the part. This is the one people get wrong if they don't do a proportion. Multiply and divide. Okay. This one is a table I can't do because it didn't open up. Okay. Starting to understand the method. Don't fight me on it. It will save you in future sections learning it. It doesn't take that much longer. We look at a couple more. B here. 120 is, put in our next easiest one, 2%. 20 is the part of what number is our unknown. Multiply, then divide, and we get 1,000. Okay. Try some of the word problems, figuring out which is the part and which is the whole. The area of the U.S. Oh no, I can't read that. Is 3.835, I believe, million square miles. Approximately 630,000 square miles are worked for food production. What percent is worked for food production? Round to the nearest tenth. So we have our free spot, 100. Okay. Our question is what percent? All right. What is our part? Can somebody tell me? Haven't heard any voices. I need to hear some voices. Is the part
The food production.
the food production? The whole would be the entire U.S. area. Okay? This would be our whole. The part would be the food production. So our numerator would be the 630,000 square miles, and the whole would be the 3.835 million. Okay. Now, this is where some of you have problems working with these large numbers. I'm going to find this easiest to expand, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 more. So it'll be 3,835,000. I did that because I know zeros on the end can cancel, right? So that's just going to now make it easier to enter 630 over. And again, you don't have to cancel it like that. You could have put it all in, but remember you got to put parentheses if you're going to do scientific or do times 10 to the 6th. You got to put parentheses when you cross multiply there. And I got 16.4%. Anybody agree?
Yes.
Okay, I see a lot of people got that one. All right, that'll take us to the last quiz question. Our quiz questions, practice quiz questions. Okay. Okay. What is 17% of 893? I'm not going to say you have to do it this way because that's a straightforward percent of a number. So I think most of you will beat me there. And be careful on the quiz. It says round to 1 decimal place. So you would have to enter 151.8. Be very careful now because this is not that significant figures stuff. You got to pay attention when it says decimal places. I expect you to round correctly on those. Okay. This is hard for you to read, I'm sure, on this one, but on the quiz, pay careful attention. I know a lot of you don't know what you got wrong. A lot of times your process is right. It's stuff like this that's counting them wrong. Okay, the second one, 15% of what number is 470? This is the ones people miss. If you missed it, I suggest you go back and set up a proportion. Multiply, then divide. They gave you the part. They're looking for the whole. It's not 0.15 times 470. Okay? That's the ones I'm warning you about. That's where the proportion works all the time. Okay? The common wrong answer would be to do 0.15 times 470. That's why this method is important. It sets you up to know that it is not 0.15 times 470. Now do you see why the method's important? Somebody's going to admit that maybe now it makes sense to use this method? Is over of, part and whole. It works. Not using it, you get about half of them right. That's what happens. You don't get them right when you know the part and you're looking for the whole. Okay? People just won't believe me. Okay? And the last one more practice for your quiz. The U.S. is 3.794 million square miles. If about 450,000 square miles are worked for timber, and this is not a fact, I just made it up, what percent of the U.S. is worked for timber? Round your answer to the nearest tenth of a percent. And the 11.9% have it. And I have already seen many people have taken the quiz and did much better this week. Some of it was the significant figures. A lot of it are those words, millions, billions, and trillions. And again, if it says put it in formal scientific notation, then you have to. If it does not, you can still take whatever number it is times 10 to the 6th, 9th, or 12th. Don't worry about adjusting the decimals and use your calculator. Is probably the easiest way. But if you're doing fine now and you last week struggled, it probably is those words and making sure, first of all, that you read them and apply them, and don't forget to apply them, and then find a way to work through it so you don't make errors in the computations. Any questions? Getting close to a test, projects getting assigned, lots going on. Keep up the good work. I have nothing else, but I'm here if you have a question. Someone speak.
No, no.
Thank you.
Megan, are you still there?
Yes.
The Excel part has to be in Excel. In case just for this week, you mean? That assignment needs to be in Excel so I can click on if you have any problems. That way I can click on and see what went wrong. On your big
Okay.
project, you'll turn in both an Excel sheet and a Word document. You'll write the
Okay.
document in Word. That way I download both and I can see your formatting in Excel and then your papers in Word. You don't need to write a separate Word document this week. You can just type because it's just a small observation, you can just type it on the Excel. If you want it in Word, if that's easier, but it's such a small observation, you can just type it right on the Excel this week.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.